Hey everyone, it's Nick Espinoza and the Authenticate OSINT Insiders team. We're really excited to chat with you today for episode 3. We're going to be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to tools. My name's Nick. I'm joined by Alec Feltry at the bottom, Nick Finberg right below me. So, guys, say hi real quick.
Hey
Yeah,
everybody.
So, let's kick this off with something interesting. Obviously, Kim Jong-un, North Korea, really interesting stuff happening there. Kim Jong-un hasn't been seen in public for I think about a month or so. The last time this happened, the guy had fallen off the face of the earth again, came back, and he had a limp. People said that he may have had a stroke, had to go into PT, so then he can get back into the public eye. This time around, people are saying that he may have gone into cardiac arrest and had to go into surgery, and that surgery may have been botched. The surgeon's hands were just shaking the whole time. Not too surprising that maybe he'd be a little bit scared of working on the Supreme Leader. But, this is a limitation on OSINT. But I want to kick this over to Alec and Nick just so they can share some thoughts. So, Alec, you have really interesting background. Hop in on that and kind of describe to the group a little bit about your experience, specifically with the Koreas.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. So when I was in the Army, my first duty station was in Korea, and I was in a unit that's called the Joint Security Area. It's the northernmost U.S. contingent on the Korean Peninsula. It's actually a UN unit, and we're combined with the Republic of Korea soldiers as well as some UN sort of advisory staff. But the reason why it's so interesting and relevant here, if you paid attention when President Trump met with Kim Jong-un, that row of blue buildings where they met and he crossed the line and went into North Korea and did all of that, that was our area of operations. That's the Joint Security Area. It's actually where they signed the peace accord to ceasefire the North and South during the Korean War. But just sort of reflecting on my time there, so the OSINT that was coming out of North Korea, it wasn't anything that could be, really trusted or incorporated into an intelligence process. They're a hermit state. They're not going to put anything out that they don't want out, as well as just that overall control over what everyone's doing online, the media outlets. It really sort of murkies the waters, so to speak, for a clear OSINT picture.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, the way that they operate. It's been historically challenging for us to gather intelligence out of that state, right? And it's specifically OSINT. You can't really trust the information that comes out of there. So it's kind of, it's just been a huge challenge.
Yeah. I think Record a Future team, big shout out to Levi Gundert. He heads off some of their threat researchers. They've had to get a really interesting data set to look at web traffic to even start to discern a little bit about what the elite leadership is doing on the web, which can then give them insight as to what's going on in the country. Just traditional OSINT, traditional data sources are just not quite there. So just an interesting limitation, right? OSINT isn't good for nearly anything, right? But in the case of hermit states, not so much. All right, so let's hop in. Tools, good, bad, and the ugly. I'm going to kick it off. So let's go to our first tool. Cool. So I'm here to talk about Dont Fingerprint Me. This is an interesting plugin that exists for Chrome. And the reason why I bring this up is fingerprinting is a really tough challenge that many users are facing today when they're going up against technically advanced adversaries. Those adversaries will use fingerprinting techniques to determine who you are, what hardware, software you're running, if you're hiding behind proxies, VPNs, you name it. They use this information in very interesting ways. And an adversary can be a Russian hacker forum. An adversary could be Facebook, right? All of these different sites and services will use fingerprinting to try to find people gathering PAI. So Don't Fingerprint Me is a great way to have kind of a counterintelligence on Rails when it comes to fingerprinting. It lets you know when you're being fingerprinted as well as what specifically was being used against you. So I'm going to run this video. So here's the GitHub page for Don't Fingerprint Me. You can see it's just a simple Chrome extension. You install it. Why are people using it? Tracking customers. Anti-password testing, basically trying to lock people out, like hackers and so on, anti-web scraping, and then they have a couple examples. But what I want to do is actually show it live. So you'll see here in my demonstration, I'm actually going to go to Facebook and log in, but use a bad password. And it will show you how and what gets triggered. So here I'm bringing up my developer console. popping in Don't Fingerprint Me, and then I'm actually going to punch in some creds that will not work, and we'll see what happens. So upon use of a bad cred, you'll see here that WebGL fingerprinting occurs. And this is just one of many that Don't Fingerprint Me is using, right? There are tons, Canvas, WebRTC, you name it. So for me, my perspective on this is an awesome tool, right? This sort of information and fidelity of what a website is doing against you is really hard for the average kind of Intel analyst that's maybe not super techie. So this puts it on rails. The bad, I would say it is limited to Chrome, right? I love our company, Authenticate. We provide a platform, but we're Firefox based. So you're not able to use Don't Fingerprint Me within our tool today. Maybe changing soon. But, check that out. So that doesn't really work well with us. And then the ugly fingerprinting techniques, this stuff changes at the speed of light. So there are new techniques that happen all the time. Battery fingerprinting, all sorts of cool stuff happening out there. And this was last updated, I want to say late 2019. So it's a little bit behind the curve, which is just a little bit disconcerting to me, because it's maybe not the latest, greatest in terms of information available. So that's my first tool. Nick, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is helpful to some of our, our investigators, maybe in the law enforcement space or commercial customers?
Yeah, this is really important for, in my experience, specifically social media. When you're using social media to gather intelligence, obviously you don't want to use a personal account, so you might create, a phony account to gather this information. But, with the fingerprinting that social media companies do, it makes it really challenging to keep those profiles active. So this is really important for that line of work, knowing what's happening in the background here and possibly figure out why your accounts are being deleted.
Yeah, this is a great way to kind of avoid the various tripwires that these providers will put into place. Like, I'm not going to get into it on this, but there are specific activities that can trigger a fingerprint and some others that will completely avoid it. So this will help you do that research as an analyst to know what to avoid and keep those accounts active. Alec, any thoughts here?
Sort of similar to Nick's train of thought there, where I think this would be really impactful for any sort of DoD or IC analyst, whether you're going out to forums or sites that you have to enter any sort of login credentials to access. Obviously, you're going to be running them through a persona, but it's great to know what you're being watched for.
Yeah, and one thing to note for all of our commercial and federal viewers. If you're going to be engaging in this sort of work, Alec mentioned an interesting phrase, a persona. Make sure what you're doing aligns with your company or organization's official policy. So we'll leave it at that. So let's jump into our next tool, and we'll hit it right now. So my second tool is the World Intellectual Patent Organization portal. The way that this can be used is for corporate profiling, looking up people of interest as well as organizations, and better understanding who the key decision makers are, the key inventors are, as well as company direction. Patent filings are just super, super interesting. So let's hit the video. So here I'm on the WIPO portal, and I'm going to do a simple search for Authenticate. So as you can see here, some really interesting patents. Scott Petrie, Ramesh, these are senior leaders within our organization. And of course, they are the inventors listed. So kind of interesting to see the differences between what Scott and Ramesh are both actually filing these patents for, as well as some of the dates. One right there that you can see is URL forwarding, blah, blah, blah. That's maybe something we're looking into. And then you can see, the second page and some of our earliest stuff in terms of patent filings. While this is useful, advanced search is where WIPO gets really interesting. So I don't get into it in this video here, but you can see there's some query examples, basically advanced Boolean logic, and, ors, nots, brackets, hard quotes, you name it. Field combination is a way to do that on Rails, basically start to search for various fields. Worth mentioning, as you can see, there are tons of different languages here, right? I was searching in English, but there's stuff in Russian, Arabic, you name it. and you can use Boolean operators, and it'll actually build the search logic for you. So kind of put that on Rails. Then you'll also notice that there's cross-lingual expansion. So really clever stuff here in terms of translation as well as precision of language choices. And then lastly, you can look at marks, and these are actual brands and kind of graphics, so like logos and so on. So I thought this was really interesting, right? We tend to focus on a lot of government sort of use cases, but this is fantastic for people doing corporate research on, let's say, near-peer companies, trying to better understand, who is the latest, greatest, and smartest inventor at another company in terms of people to look at. All sorts of stuff to dig into here that's hyper valuable. And I've never seen this one portal mentioned. I've searched on, I think, Google's patents portal, and that's useful. But this is just on Rails. One thing to note, hat tip to Key Findings. They're an awesome blog that actually did a write-up on this, and that's how I came across it. So all credit where credit's due. But yeah, this is a cool one. I really liked it. Super clean interface, really thoughtful, some powerful search capabilities. So that's the good. The bad stuff is, the actual ability to export this information in a meaningful way for loading into another system or pulling this at a really large scale is very limited. And the ugly, there's really not a whole lot of ugly stuff here. It's actually a really nice experience. The bad stuff is just kind of like getting the data out. Finding it is easy, getting it out is hard. And I didn't see really any APIs or programmatic interfaces for accessing it on another system that might be able to do large-scale queries in an automated fashion for you. So, maybe that's an ugly thing, but it's a little bit nitpicky. So, yeah, I'll pause there. What do you guys think about this?
So I absolutely love this for money laundering investigations. When this is awesome when looking at, people that might have shell companies set up, shell patents, anything that they might have filed. This is absolutely just extremely valuable for those type of investigations.
Yeah, you can probably, actually, you can absolutely do organization names as well. So obviously I was searching for authenticate as like a simple search, but you can search for company names. You can do people names. So you can see, for example, let's pretend Scott Petrie is involved in multiple companies that are shell companies. You can start to bounce between where else he's showing up in patents. You can search temporally, limit your search. So yeah, that's a good point, right? This can help you in some AML type stuff. Looking at corporate espionage, you name it, really clever. What about you, Alec?
I think for me, looking at this from sort of a strategic intelligence standpoint or defense investigations, I think this could be really useful for looking into adversarial countries' R&D as far as their military tech, who's filed patents for optics, drones, etc. I think this could be really impactful there.
That's a really cool use case. I did not think about that, and that seems like a no-brainer. So nice thought on how to apply this in an interesting way. And I'm sure when you were watching me click through that, right, seeing all the foreign languages and cross-lingual capabilities, like I have no idea how to say night vision goggles in Russian, but I'm betting this thing does. So cool, very cool. All right, let's jump into our next tool.
Okay, so this is my first tool, and it's called TrendsMap, and this is specifically for Twitter research. So what this allows you to do is look at all of the keywords, hashtags, and users that are trending all across the world. So a ton of really great data that can be collected here, and it's great for looking at, what specific events or what specific, just things that are happening in all these different regions. So Nick, if you want to go ahead and cue up the video.
You got it.
So as you can see here, it's really easy to use, and there's a ton of information on here. So you can, click and drag to view different areas. You can zoom in, and as obviously as you move around, the more stuff is going to pop up. So just by simply selecting one of them, you're going to be able to see this menu, and it's going to show you local tweets, global tweets, how many tweets. So you can see this one has 97,000 tweets in the last day on this for this particular profile. So this is just really valuable when it comes to just looking at what's happening around the world, right? And as you zoom, as you scroll down through this, you can see all the different tweets, and you can load more as you go through. And as you zoom in, obviously it's going to narrow down those results a lot more. You can select more. You're going to get stuff obviously in some different languages, once you're going to these foreign countries. So a lot of great benefits of this tool. Obviously, seeing what's happening, But, kind of some of the bad stuff about this is, the free account only gives you 7 days worth of history. It's not terrible. Obviously, you can get a lot of valuable information with 7 days, but I'd like something with a little bit more time. And, what's kind of ugly about it is I haven't seen any export capabilities that might be included in a paid account, but the paid accounts are really, really steep, starting off at $25 a month, with your basic advantages there, all the way up to $645 a month, which gives you, 10 weeks worth of access. So, or 10 weeks worth of tweets. So, what are your guys' kind of thoughts on this tool?
Well, for starters, I mean, $645 per month for just 10 weeks of historical data. I'm not going to name names, but a bunch of different providers have absolutely like huge swaths compared to that. 10 weeks of data is just so limited, especially when you're trying to do like an after action or look at a historical event to maybe find a person of interest or find where something originated from. That's just not enough. And then, you didn't really say much about export content. If they're not making it readily available, they probably don't have great exports. So that makes it limited utility for other stuff like, let's say, machine learning or other interesting analytic methods. What about you, Alec?
Yeah, to kind of dovetail off your sentiment there, Nick, this seems like it's pretty limited as far as the capability and what the analyst can do with it. I mean, you can get the paid account. That is pretty pricey, though. I mean, me personally, I like how it's laid out. I'm a bit of a visual learner, so I like being able to scroll around and see all the tags and all the things here. But I don't see anything that's really too practical for it other than maybe getting an additional data feed while you're monitoring some incident.
Yeah, broad situational awareness is where I think this is probably most useful. But I mean, I haven't been hands-on on it like you have, Nick, but just, I mean, we all know the fidelity of data needed to make something actionable. This is more just like the cybersecurity pew-pew map where you see packets flying around. Like, interesting, helpful in some ways, but man, it just that price point is crazy for.
Yeah, that's a lot higher than what I was expecting when I looked into it.
Yeah, cool. So let's jump into your next one. Let me hit that for you. 3, 2, and 1.
Thanks, Nick. So for the first two I'll be covering for my good, bad, and ugly, I chose TinEye for image correlation. Nick, if you want to go ahead and play the video.
Yeah, you got it.
Thanks. So if you're doing OSINT, you're probably going to have to do reverse image search at some point. And most of you out there that are seasoned OSINT practitioners have probably used TinEye at one point or another. It's great for reverse image searching. You have your saved image, you upload it, and you get sort of a nice little readout. It's going to show you where your image appears, the countries, the URLs. So that's sort of just their basic service. But I'm going to go in here to their product portion because I do want to cover two things they offer that I didn't know they had. The first one is TinEye Alerts. Cool. And alerts are geared a little bit more towards sort of commercial customers, where if you're creating content, let's say you're a graphic designer or a company that has images of your trademark and you upload them, TinEye will crawl the internet and let you know what sites your images appear on. So it's sort of great for anyone that might be concerned about trademark theft or branding theft or things along those lines.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, it's great for copyright.
Exactly.
Yeah. Then the next product that we get into that they have is actual access to the TinEye API. The TinEye API, basically, you can go ahead and query against the reverse image search database. And really, it's sort of only useful if you're doing large scale reverse image searching, right? If you're going on, you're just doing a reverse image search maybe once a week, twice a week, you probably don't need that. But it might be something to evaluate for an entire agency or team because you do go on and use this service. And with that access to that API, you're going to get a lot more valuable information back.
Yeah, not only that, you can probably programmatically push huge swaths of information versus onesie twosie images, right? Mm-hmm. So,
yep.
Like everyone's talked about, commercial use cases, awesome. Government stuff, like, for example, photos of senior leadership, right, or key personnel, like looking for person threats or threats against facilities, right? You can have that sort of programmatically happening in the background with that API. It's obviously like a pretty power user or very tech savvy sort of organization use case, but definitely valuable.
Yeah. Does that say $10,000?
Oh my
Yes,
God.
it does, and that's for the API access. So that's going to tail into my bad portion
Yep.
on TinEye, where basically both of those services that I talked through, the alerts and the API, they're paid. For the alerts, your first month of access is $420, and then every additional month after that is $310.
Okay.
So it's pretty pricey. Then for the API, the most basic license for access to their API, it's 5,000 searches and it is $200, and then they scale up infinitely. So again, it is a pretty pricey service, but it's one that's pretty impactful.
I mean, $5,000, or sorry, 5,000 searches for whatever you said, $200, $300. That's not horrible, but I mean, there has to be a real tight use case for that. I mean, that's real money.
Yep.
Interesting, real interesting. Hmm.
Then, as far as the ugly here, I didn't have much. I mean, TinEye is pretty much a known entity in this space, and I mean, even just their basic free service they offer is great. I couldn't really find too much ugliness here, so that's where I'm at with it.
Nick, you had what was the search engine you mentioned that has some really good capability for reverse image searching? It's not an obvious one, at least to me. What was it?
Yeah, it's Yandex. So in blogs that I've read, by popular OSINT, professionals, they say that Yandex is actually, one of the best, if not the best, reverse image searching tools, because they do have facial recognition software included in that, reverse image search. So I'm interested in, what kind of stuff that TinEye is doing to help with that kind of search.
Creepy. Yeah, interesting stuff there. Yeah, because like reverse image searching, but more specifically like personal identification, that's a hyper valuable data set. There's Clearview AI who does that sort of thing. It's a paid service to law enforcement in the States. I think they do it internationally too, but I don't know what their data sets are. Anyways, that stuff is just hyper valuable. So Yandex is a cool one. I think I've had great success with Bing. Bing has really good reverse image searching as well, beyond just kind of TinEye. And then interestingly for me, Google sometimes has good stuff that comes up when you reverse image search, but I've found success elsewhere. So I don't know. I'm not super sold on Google's stuff. TinEye is obviously the gold standard, but yeah. So
yeah, I've heard good things about Bing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I'd be hesitant to do any sort of reverse image search of importance in Yandex. Being that it's a Russian company, there's probably some sort of backdoor there.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, let's jump to your next tool, Ak. Let me hit that for you.
So for my second tool, I chose Yasni. It's a data aggregator and sort of search enabler if you're looking up a person of interest. And Nick, if you want to go ahead and click play.
Yeah, and dude, before I click play, I've never heard of this thing.
Yeah, I didn't before I was doing research for this either. So this is their landing page. You have a few different options as far as if you want to look up a person, a corporation, or even a service. So it seems like it's almost trying to be a search engine, but when we do run our search here, you'll see that some of the data that you get back is a little bit different than what you get from a Google or a Bing. Mm-hmm. So I just did a search for Angela Merkel. So I wanted to make sure I got back enough relevant content, but you're presented with this sort of blob of data where there's geolocations that may be associated with her, titles or other people. There's some images. And then as I scroll down here in a second, it goes from everything from telephones and addresses of people with that name. As you can see, she doesn't live in the United States. Profiles, headlines where she's tagged, potential interests, private homepages. I mean, it really gives you a huge amount of data. And as we get down here more towards the bottom, one piece of data here that I did think was impactful or of use, it gives you relevant tags that you can then jump into a search with down here at the bottom. So if there's any other world leaders that have met with Angela Merkel, or locations, or just other German politicians that are closely associated with her, it's a quick way to branch out.
So yeah, that'd be good for like some network analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a quick way to jump into the relevant information there. But I'm going to click on this products portion here, and we come in here. You can view the licenses are pretty cheap, $7.99 or $5.99 US.
Yeah,
and it's based on 3 months or 12 months periods. But one thing I found that I thought was really ugly, it says that it was last updated in 2014, so almost 6 years ago to the day.
Yeah,
that's wild to me, because I mean, so much has changed in the course of OSINT and just even tool capability since then. Another piece of the ugly that I found here was up at the top where you see post expose, above our little search bar there, kind of on the right side of the screen. An individual can come on here, and if you have a license, you can post what's called an expose to this site, and you can put up information about yourself or another individual. So it's a really easy way to get some misinformation or run a disinformation campaign. I mean, especially if you're even a criminal and law enforcement's looking into you, you can come up and just post, I'm not from this town, but really I am. I don't know. This tool struck me as an odd one.
Yeah. So when you mentioned that you're going to rock with this for this episode, I was, one, just confused, and two, I had to look into that a little bit. So I'm going to steal your thunder, but I did a little bit of research. The company looks like it's very small, and this is no knock on them, but it looks like they're relatively small. I think about 3 people, 1 developer, I think a co-founder, and then a CEO. But it looks like their tech staff is relatively thin. But they've done, pretty crazy in-depth stuff and organization of their content. So, obviously a little bit dated. I hope that last updated date is inaccurate. And then, of course, the expose thing is unique because you could do some misinformation. So just interesting site. Don't know quite what to make of it. Obviously, I want to use it against like a real target, quote unquote. Angela Merkel is interesting, but we all know exactly who she is. But I'd love to see what it has on someone like you or I or Nick. So yeah.
Yeah, one tool that I've seen that does something similar is cyberbackgroundchecks.com.
Yeah.
They don't have as much information, like they don't have social media profiles. They do have, known associates and possible relatives and addresses and stuff like that. And then, for the social media side is where you can find phone numbers and email addresses, which will help with that search.
Yeah.
I would like to know more, if this actually was last updated in 2014, because that's pretty crazy to me.
Actually, Alec, I have a question for you. So, when I looked up this company, I saw that the company was based, I think, in Germany, if I'm not mistaken, which is kind of funny because you searched Angela Merkel. Do you know if they have better European data versus U.S. data? Because I'm seeing some U.S. telephones and addresses. It's just interesting that a European company would have results focused on U.S. persons, right? So does their European stuff look any better, or do you not know? Have you checked that out?
So I ran a few searches, but again, I was using politicians, celebrities, people that have a lot of information out them on the web because I want to see how the tool functions at its highest point. Yeah. It'd be interesting to dive into that a little further and run maybe a search for a private citizen and sort of compare and contrast. But again, just from looking at how the data displayed itself here, it's a giant blob of data, right? And it's going to take a lot of reading and really nugging through all of the results you get back to find something of relevance. Because, you're getting geotags, people, associates, news articles, and it seems to be in an endless quantity.
Yeah, I guess the good and bad news is there's a wealth of information, and you got to really apply some of those kind of just core digging skills as an OSINT analyst to make sense of it.
Yeah.
So speaking of OSINT analysts, let's go to our next little section here. Here we can review the contest winner for last week, or 2 weeks ago rather. So 2 weeks ago, our contest was, share your favorite Google Dork with us. And we got a really, really good one. I love this one for a couple of reasons. I don't think you guys have seen this, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. But here's the email, blurred out all the relevant stuff. So Intel-related Google Dork, what they're doing is searching for a specific domain minus results from that domain. Meaning it's helping the search find information mentioning that domain without content from it to help you evaluate veracity of the content. Meaning, is this a good source? Oftentimes people will say, for example, wikipedia.net is great, but it can also be, the content can be changed on the drop of a hat, and crowdsourcing is good, but blah, 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 blah. So really cool search to help you find the veracity of a source that you're looking at. And actually, I'm going to pause. I'm talking about veracity. So Alec or Nick, you guys are Intel nerds. That's actually what you guys, what your MOSs were while you were in the military. So can you guys talk to our viewers a little bit about what the concept of veracity is when it comes to a source?
Yeah, Nick, you want to go first?
Alec, why don't you take this one first?
All right. Um, so when I think of veracity, as it pertains to a source of information, basically it's what you're looking at as far as the content, right? How true it is. Mm-hmm. We've seen it come to light more in recent years and recent times, but fake news is a thing. It's out there. It's not just weird hermit states that are running their own fake news campaigns. It's in our media today, even. Mm-hmm. So having a Google Dork like this, where an analyst can quickly employ it to really delve through the veracity of a site or the content that they're looking at, it's infinitely useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, obviously Google Dorking can take a good amount of practice, and I'm really impressed by this Google Dork. I mean, this is definitely one of the more advanced, and hearing about the benefits of the veracity and looking at your sources, this is really top of the line stuff here.
Yeah, it's so simple, but when you think about what it's doing, really, really cool. So, hat tip to our contest winner. I won't say your name, and check your inbox. I've emailed you twice saying you got a gift card and you got to tell us what you want, and we got to get your address so we can send you a swag box. So I think you're going to be tuned in. Send us that stuff. We'll get you set up. So let's talk about our next contest. This is new to you guys also. I want our viewers to share an interesting geospatial find and why they think it's interesting. So one of our colleagues is a geospatial expert. He's going to love this one. And he always talks to us about interesting ways to think about geospatial content, right? Nick, you've worked closely with some geospatial analysts for the past, year and a half or something like that. And you know full and well, like geospatial stuff, people think of it as just overhead imagery, right? Satellite imagery. But it's pretty much anything under the sun that describes features on Earth. It could be telemetry data coming from overhead radar that penetrates the rainforest canopy. It could be geotagged social media content, like me taking a photo and saying, "Hey, I'm in Washington D.C. At the Navy Yard having a drink." It could be Google publishing content around COVID and how people are starting to kind of break quarantine and start to break loose over the past few weeks. So whatever you guys, the viewers, think is interesting, send it to us, OSINT@authenticate.com. We'll be reviewing them, and we will send you a note when you win, or if you win. So, guys, do you have any interesting kind of geospatial thoughts to share? Maybe kind of get our viewers thinking about it?
So I'm definitely guilty as charged, as not really giving geospatial intelligence the credit that it's deserved.
Okay.
When you're working in the SCIF, the geoenners are the little weirdos that hang out in the dark room in the back of the SCIF that no one gets to talk to.
Yeah.
But it's infinitely valuable. Whether you're looking at stuff on HiSide or even on OSINT, there's thousands of ways that you can employ it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for my background, the geotag social media content was huge for us. When some dummy posts pictures of guns and money and drugs on his social media stuff, that's where that geospatial data can really help us out. On the more funny side, it's always humorous to look at some of the crazy stuff that's been captured from like Google Street View.
Yeah, you know what? Oh gosh, I'm wondering who's going to have the best Google Street View submission. There is just absolutely hilarious stuff. People troll the cars purposefully. It catches people doing bad stuff, dogs relieving themselves, you name it. It's on Google Earth. Cool. So I think that about wraps us up for this episode. Right now, we're going to transition into a live Q&A. So you'll notice we haven't been responding to your Q&A or questions during the live stream. We want to keep this on rails, but now we're going to go live and kind of chat through that with you guys. So let's do that. So, and 3, 2, and 1. Hey everyone. So just as we're getting ready to go into our Q&A, I saw questions from BP as well as one of our other viewers. I wanted to chat briefly about OSINT Academy. So OSINT Academy is a world-class computer-based training program coupled with premium OSINT Insiders content in which we are providing behind-the-scenes stuff on how to use our platform, interesting tools we're coming across, interviews with our network of intelligence analysts in the commercial and public sector. And lastly, we're going to be launching a forum as well. So we've just released that. If you go to authenticate.com and go to our product page, you'll notice there's OSINT Academy at the very bottom. If you are an existing customer or would like to be a customer, check it out. This will bring you from beginner to advanced in a really meaningful way. You'll be generating finished intelligence products. You'll have access to world-class peers to chat with in the forums, and you'll get really cool stuff just like this OSINT Insiders episode on exclusive topics that are only accessible within the Academy. So I am so excited to really just kind of release that out into the wild, and I'm really hoping that you and I can chat on a private Zoom meeting. So reach out to us through our website, through your account rep, or email us at osint@authenticate.com, and we will be happy to chat with you. So now let's go into that Q&A. So I'm going to keep this on Rails just with me, just you and I chatting through some questions. So we had a really great question around TinEye. Is TinEye better than Google reverse image search? So I don't know if I can say it's better, but I will say that there are some differences between the two platforms. So TinEye does their own scraping and crawling of imagery across the web. They have billions upon billions of data points. And what they're doing that's a little bit different is they're able to identify cropped images as well as some stuff that's lightly modified. Google reverse image search has been a little bit limited in that capability. So I really like TinEye for that alone. So a little bit different, some different capabilities. So I'll kind of leave it at that, but we do love TinEye, we do love Google reverse image search, Yandex, Bing reverse image search, you name it. It's a really fantastic set of tools that you can use as you're doing image correlation. And as you develop your skill set, this is where you're going to have to start to develop that tradecraft, right? Knowing when and where to use specific search engines based on the data set you're pulling from, the type of information that you're feeding it, meaning like, is this an image from an avatar on a web forum? Is this an image of a beach? Is this something from a regional social media platform? These are things you kind of got to think about as you develop your own tradecraft BP. So actually, now we have a question around, do you need a Twitter account to use TrendsMap? So great question. You do not need to use a Twitter account to use TrendsMap. You will be logging in. I believe they have what's called Twitter Firehose access, and it's usually a small sampling of the entirety of Twitter's content. I'll have to double check for you, but that is what I believe their data set's coming from. So they have licensed that on your behalf, which is why they have kind of the freemium platform, meaning like you can view some stuff without a paid account, and then you can upgrade to additional tiers to get access to more information that is that historical stuff. So yeah, I think those are our only questions right now. But if you have any additional, please feel free to email us at osint@authenticate.com, and my team will be responding directly to you. And if it gets complicated, we're happy to pick up the phone. We're happy to hop on a Zoom. And again, last but not least, OSINT Academy, such an exciting initiative that our company has put together. I am so glad to bring that to market and into your hands. This will be a really interesting set of content, a really interesting community, and of course, private videos from yours truly, team, and our extended network of folks that we've worked with, as well as people who are reaching out. So big hat tip to everyone. Rebecca, great job on getting that win for the contest. And with that, I'm going to sign off on behalf of the OSINT Insiders team. Thanks for tuning in, and we're looking forward to having you guys on our next stream. All right, guys, I'll see you.